Tell me about grooming gangs and what you saw over there.
It's heartbreaking because I don't think Americans can quite understand the scale when we talk about it. I know when I was first researching what was going on with it was first called grooming gangs. A more appropriate name for it would be Pakistani rape gangs, because it was done predominantly by Pakistani, either immigrants to the UK. And what was going on is the sheer scale of this is you'll say 55 different cities and towns across the UK. Some go as high into the 80s. But essentially what was happening is there was kind of a regular process that was used where a lot of girls, which oftentimes found themselves in difficult family situations, were being groomed by various men. And they were starting as young as 11, 12, 13 years old. They would give them free rides. They would give them alcohol. They would give them cigarettes. They would give them drugs. They would give them free takeaways. It's what they call takeout in the UK. And what would eventually happen is they gain their trust. And then over time, multiple men would assault them. They would videotape it. And when you start to listen to the testimony of what these girls were going through, they had created conditions where all these girls felt at this point that they were either in love with their attackers, or they just felt like there was no way that they could escape them. The consequences, either through physical abuse or through just the social destruction of their reputations because of things that were videotaped. And this is not something that's been going on for 5 or 10 years. This is something that's been now going on for decades. And you don't count the victims in the thousands. Some of the initial reports, it was like 1,400 out of Rotherham. No, it's in the hundreds of thousands at this point. And we don't have a complete number, but definitely in the hundreds of thousands. And what is so frustrating is that obviously you can't hide something of that scale. And so you had testimony from victims talking about how law enforcement was involved, which would be bad, and it is. That's horrific. But I think the other thing that speaks to what I see with kind of a crisis of masculinity is the number of officers that would be called to a scene that didn't want to act because they were more afraid of being called a racist or Islamophobic and what that would do to their careers than they were about helping girls that had been trapped in and had been repeatedly abused and raped by these men. Where you would see a police force that was far more eager to prosecute mean tweets than they were to go after people that were taking place in systemic rape. And then you see this one individual, this one rape gang leader that finally got arrested, tried, and convicted, sentenced to 22 years. And the first thing that you think to yourself is 22 years with over 30 counts of rape of girls as young as 12 years old. The guy only got 22 years. And then it gets worse. He got let out at 14. For what? Good behavior? He gets let out at 14, and now they can't even deport him because of an archaic law in the books from 1971. And so you find yourself in a situation where you talk to these families that are showing up to this Unite the Kingdom rally. And the Labour Party and even some elements of the Tories are dismissing these people as just a bunch of far right-wing activists. And I went there and I just asked them, I said, "Why? Can you just tell me why you're here?" And you're sitting here talking to a young Welsh family with a couple of kids. And these guys are not white supremacists. These are not people that want to kick everybody out of the country who doesn't look like them. These are just people that are terrified of what happened to young girls all over the UK and don't understand why their government is unwilling to do anything about it. And then the moment these people show up, they're automatically categorized as racist or far-right extremists. And you're getting to a point where young men in the UK, they're already going out. They're already starting to train. And I don't mean train to do violence upon innocent people, but they're starting to train because they honestly believe that they've gotten to a place where the two-tier policing in the UK is so bad. And you see this with the young man that was recently stabbed, and then his attacker accuses him of being racist, and the British police let him bleed out because, my gosh, the worst thing that could possibly happen would be accused of being racist, not helping a stabbing victim that doesn't meet the right demographics. And what I see going on in the UK right now, and I heard it repeatedly, and I didn't just hear it from people that had showed up to march at the Unite the Kingdom rally. I heard it from multiple academics. I heard it from people in the House of Lords. And you ask them, like, how long do you have to save your country right now? And all of them said between 5 to 10 years. I take that back. There was one young man who looked me dead in the eye and said, "We've already lost it. I'm here because I think we have an opportunity to take it back." But it's not hard to see why they believe this when you would have fathers that would call the police and they had showed up to an apartment building where their daughters were being kept. And they've showed up, they've called the police and they're pounding on their doors and they say, my daughter is inside. They're being abused. My daughter's inside. Go get him. Let me go get him. And the police arrested them. There's only so long that people will put up with that. And if they cannot trust the institutions that are supposed to be there to protect them, to protect their daughters from something like this, then there is a point where they will take matters into their own hands. And to expect anything less is absurd. And the UK, I would argue, is probably about 10 years further down the road than we are in the United States. But if we don't learn from the lessons that they're facing right now, because they've already, you talked to them, they've already accepted that there's no way to completely peacefully fix this problem. There's going to be chaos. And it is sad to watch because, look, I'm a very proud American, but I also recognize that my country was built by English settlers. It was originally founded by English settlers with English common law and English traditions. And you look at a country with over 1,000 years of very proud history that are now struggling to identify with what it means to be British, because this ideology has taken root in pretty much every culturally shaping institution in the UK, from their government to their schools to the Church of England. And you see this remnant. You see this remnant of Englishmen and women that want to take it back. And there's so much beauty, so much history in the UK. My family got a chance to see it. It was wonderful. We enjoyed every minute of it. But you go to the Tower of London and you see that, and it's exactly what you expect it to look like. And then you walk 6 blocks, and you would think you were in Dhaka, Bangladesh. So.
Well, I saw a couple of British Instagram posts recently where they are pinning some hopes on the French. Marine Le Pen is been released from her, or at least been downgraded on her ridiculous Trump. She was attacked, lawfare, same stuff Trump went through, and now she's going to run for president. And she's got 55% of the vote, last I heard. And they began realizing about 4 years ago that what it is to be French may not exist very shortly. And the French are very quick to run back the other direction when it comes to that issue. So let's see if they're able to do so. But the thing that caught my attention, what you just said about these people that raise any issue as it pertains to these grooming gangs, are called far right. That's the insult they use to dismiss people. You're far right, far right. These guys are just traditional left. You're far right. That makes you a Nazi, and therefore we can't listen to you.
I think Americans need to understand that term from the European experience. When they say far right, they mean Nazi. Yeah. But the other thing I think is important to point out here is that there has been a difference, and we've seen it here in the United States as well. Serving in the legislature, I got very used to Democrat colleagues calling me a racist or a sexist whenever I disagreed with them on tax policy. And I understood what they were doing. They were trying to rob me of my moral legitimacy so they didn't have to engage with my arguments. But something has changed, and what has changed in the United States, and it's already see it reflected in the UK, or we can look at the UK and look at our future here. They're not just trying to rob you of your moral legitimacy anymore. Now they're calling you things which suggest that you're a threat, or that you're committing an act of violence purely by existing or expressing your opinions. And when someone goes from trying to rob you of your moral legitimacy to trying to characterize you as an active threat, what they're really trying to do is they're trying to justify their excuse to use violence against you. And you see this with the UK with respect to arresting people over what they say, pretty innocuous things on social media in the UK can get you arrested. And that's the part that we need to be concerned about, is that they're not going to be satisfied with robbing you of your moral legitimacy. They want to be able to create a moral framework where they can commit an aggressive act of violence against you and pretend it's self-defense.